Welcome back. I'm Georgie Barrett and I'm joined this morning by Harry, Kerry and JJ. And now we're carrying on talking about pet healthcare. So, Harry, let's go back to your top tips. I guess my first question is insurance really worth it? We've heard from lots of callers who've, claimed a huge amount.
Yeah.
But there also must be people who get out insurance and they think, oh, it's actually quite expensive. I don't get my money's worth for it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to get your money's worth from it because that means something has gone wrong. And actually, when we asked people, 40% of pet owners said that even though they've got insurance, they've not had to claim on it in 5 years. But if you've ended up in a situation where your dog is seriously ill, you are going to be very glad that you've got it. So there are some alternatives. Some people self-insure. They basically put away the money that they would have spent on a premium into a bank account that's earning them interest, and if they need it, they can take it out, and if they don't need it, it's still their money. The only issue is if you've not got enough cash in there, then you're not going to be able to cover something that's really expensive, so that's a risk.
We've had one call with a £40,000 bill.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, obviously I don't have any pets, but for me, the insurance sounds like it's like holiday insurance. I never book holiday insurance, so I think I'll be fine. I'm not going to break my leg on holiday, and I take the risk. I think if I did own a pet, I would just take the risk and gamble.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I would. But who's going to pay 40 grand? That's crazy.
Well, that's why you have insurance, right? Okay, so you are going to let's say you're not JJ and you are going to go down the insurance route. What tips do you have for us to try and get those costs down?
So, as I said before, buy when healthy. So ideally, when you're first buying the dog or the cat, you can actually, get a decent deal, and there are no pre-existing conditions there. You are going to get a lower quote, and you can buy for life then, and then you'll be covered for a long time. That can save you a lot of money. But then also, once you are paying, much like with any other insurance, most subscriptions, if you pay annually rather than paying monthly, you will save some money. That I always think is a little bit annoying because you're giving money up front for something which you're only getting later down the line. If you need to, it might even be worth using like a 0% balance transfer or payment credit card to kind of just cover that cost, because it will save you a little bit of cash. And then also preventative care. So staying up to date with your jabs, with the vaccinations, getting microchipped, making sure you have flea and worm treatment, that will reduce your costs in the long term. You're not going to have the nasty surprises down the line.
And that's maybe when the pet healthcare plan can come into its own, because it just means all those problems.
Nip those problems in the bud. Yeah, you're not going to have those problems. So that's really important. And that also comes with making sure that you choose a pet that you can afford over a long lifetime. There are breeds that are more expensive than others, so talk to your vet when you're buying to make sure that you get an animal that's not going to cost you a fortune. And then finally, haggle. So insurance, always haggle with insurance. Get a quote, shop around, and take it to maybe your existing provider and say, look, I've got this quote. Can I go elsewhere and get that price, or are you going to give me a lower price than I've been quoted elsewhere? That often works.
That does work,
Yes.
because Minnie is 6 and I'd never claimed ever on her insurance, but last year they wanted to put it up by £21 a month because she'd gone from the 0 to 5 bracket into the 6 bracket. So I phoned them up and I said, no, there's no evidence here that I am a frequent user, that I'm costing you lots of money, and they put it back down, and it rose by about £2.50 in the end. So they do try it on, so do try and barter back. It works.
The only issue is you are slightly over a barrel if they do then have a pre-existing condition, because that new insurer wouldn't necessarily cover that. Okay. So if they're healthy, it's very easy to shop around.
Here's a quick question then. Does it pay to be loyal? I've stayed loyal with my insurance company.
It can sometimes, but you really don't want to stay loyal blindly.
Okay.
Make sure that you've got a good price elsewhere.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Thank you, Harry. Steve from Surrey, do you have a question for Harry, or have you got a very expensive pet?
Did you say Steve?
Yes. Is it Steve?
Yes, it is Steve.
Oh, good.
No,
Hi, Steve.
I know. Yes, and I am from Surrey.
What? Yeah, great. I'm very pleased to hear it. Tell me, have you got a
Yes,
pet?
I inherited 2 Yorkshire Terriers, which are absolutely beautiful and gorgeous. Unfortunately, the person passed away that had them. Now, hello?
Hello,
I
I'm
can't
here.
hear you. Yes, I can't hear you. Unfortunately, the person passed away that had them. Now, mine are insured, but I put them in for spading, or wanted to, and I got a quote for £600 each.
Oof.
Wow.
Now, I have a friend in France, so I phoned him up and I was talking to him about this. He said, come over. So I went over for a couple of days in France, took the dogs with me, went to a local vet that he uses. The whole bill was €175.
Wow, so you are
I had 2 wonderful days in France and returned. What annoys me a little bit more, and maybe people don't think of, is there are dogs dying out there and cats dying because they can't afford the vet bills.
Right.
They are actually causing the deaths of dogs by being so exorbitant in their prices.
And is that usual to have such a discrepancy between, a UK vet? UK vet's just overcharging? Do you think it's that simple?
That's what the CMA is going to find out by hook or by crook. They will get to the bottom of what's going on in the UK vets. It could be that there's actual competition in France. It could be that these are, proper, traditional, independent, farm vets who are charging the right prices. But this is something that the CMA is there for, to make sure that there is that level of competition, because you don't want to, at least when you go to France, you can come back with a boot full of wine as well and really save some extra money. It's really important part of it.
Should there be some responsibility on owners to then only be getting animals that they can afford? And if you can't afford to perhaps pay a bill, then you shouldn't be owning pets.
I think
it's not a human right to own pets.
I think when you make that decision to own a pet, you really have to look at the long-term costs and not just the immediate ones. But what I would say is there's people who end up, through no fault of their own, in a really nasty financial position. And luckily there are charities out there that look after pets for people who are in those sticky situations. And so really, if you are in that situation where you know that your animal needs treatment, you don't think you can afford it, go online, which.co.uk has got a list of those charities to find out what treatment you can get.
Well, that's a really good tip. Steve, thank you for your call. Let's go to Margaret from Lincolnshire. Hi, Margaret.
Hello.
Do you have a pet? Tell me your story.
Yes, it's recently happened to me. I've got a French bulldog. And it was quite a shock. I wasn't aware of the problems that French dogs have got, and it is a massive problem. And I think the insurers should make people aware of this. And it cost £7,000, and I had to travel to Leeds for the surgery because it's a specialised thing.
So do you have pet insurance?
I had pet insurance. Okay. I had health cover for smaller things. And I was paying out £57 altogether a month. But it only covered me for £2,500.
And it was £7,000 bill. £57 sounds a lot, Harry.
It's a lot of money. And, this is one of those things where it's going to vary by breed, that your premiums you're paying. But in that case, I think it's really important when you make that decision, if you have got a risky breed, you should be informed about it at the buying stage.
Yeah.
But also then that allows you to make a decision, am I going to go for this premium platinum level of cover that is going to cover those really expensive eventualities?
Yeah. OK. Margaret, thank you so much for sharing your story. Let's go to Alex. Hi, Alex. Have you got a pet?
Hi, I currently just have the one dog. This is about the beautiful border collie I had a few years ago. I had lost him. We had to have him put to sleep, and I phoned the vet and asked them to come to the house because he's quite a large dog. And for them to come out and do the literally 10-minute appointment to inject him, I ended up with a bill for £360.
Wow.
Because that's not covered on the pet insurance.
We can see him there on screen. He's a beautiful doggy.
Thank you.
So did you know it was going to cost you that much beforehand?
No, absolutely not. No, at no point did they say. I mean, I was obviously quite distressed when I phoned. Oh, there he is.
You're really vulnerable at that moment.
Yeah, hugely vulnerable. And then, obviously, after they'd given him the injection and they waited to check that he'd passed, they're like, well, we can do a pet cremation and we can take him back. And at that point, I clicked on. I said, but how much will that cost? It was £80 just to store his body, and then there's the cremation on top. And it's just, and at that point, not knowing I was due a £360 bill just after Christmas, that would have been, we struggled to pay that bill as it was because we weren't expecting it to be quite that high.
Yeah, and I think that's what this sort of investigation will hopefully, unveil a little bit more, which is that sort of price, transparency is not there at the moment, and it really needs to be there. Alex, thank you so much for your call.
Thank you.
Babs from Greater Manchester, hello. Tell me about your story.
Hello. Yes, so basically, one of our cats, I noticed last year that he had a lump on his leg. So we went to the vets and they did some various scans and tests. And then they rung me. Funnily enough, I was out. They rung me out of hours, so I knew, it must be serious. And they were saying, like, oh, he's got cancer. And obviously giving me a lot of information to try and digest. And then she was, like, saying, rushing me, like, saying, so what do you want to do? Do you want to have his leg amputated, etc.? And I was just like, whoa, I need to bit of time to get my head around this. So basically, we spent all this money, but then they seemed to be toing and froing and saying it was cancer, then it wasn't, then it was, then it wasn't. Honestly, you couldn't make it up. And then so we spent all this money, and then they suggested this other kind of big designer scan, but they obviously have some sort of arrangement with another vet's place because he said, we'll do it for you in Wakefield, and it's £4,000.
Wow.
Me and my partner was like...
I'm really sorry to interrupt you halfway through that. But yeah, that sounds like a huge bill for you to take. We have run out of time for today, but thank you so much for all your calls. Thank you also to Harry, Kerry and JJ. Jeremy is back at 9:15 tomorrow morning. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Thank you.